Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Little Tweets on the Prairie. I love that opening song. That never gets old. Welcome to episode 2 of This Week in Twitter, our brand new show on the This Week in Network. Still the newest show, I believe.
It's the newest show on the network, yeah.
On the This Week in Network, we're very pleased to get it going here at 11:08 a.m. Amish time. Yes. If you saw the little scroll before, which they don't have clocks, so they're a little off. My name is Lon Harris. I will be sort of the host. With me, Amanda Coulong. She is my sort of new co-host.
Hello, hello.
A Coulong on Twitter. I'll try to give away everybody's Twitter
Coulong
handle. So I'm at Lon's. We have at A Coulong.
Like oolong tea with an A and C in front of it.
Is that easier than just saying A Coulong, you think?
People don't understand the Coulong thing. They spell it C-U something something. It's like oolong tea, seriously, with an AC in front of it.
Did you ever consider...
Oops.
Whoa, that's me.
Wow.
Sorry, folks.
And by the way, we can see
Why
Mark's
is there volume
screen on
volume on the laptop I'm using?
So
What
be careful what you're showing on screen there, Mark.
I'm not surfing.
Total amateur hour.
I'm being good.
All right. Anyway, I was going to do a little bit here with you about why don't you ever consider changing your name to something simpler? But now the timing is all off and I've blown it. We'll go on. Mike Bracco here, our newsman, at Bracco on Twitter.
At Bracco, B-R-A-C-C-O.
Are you going to talk more this week?
I'll
that
try.
was the number one comment I got.
I'll try to chime in a little bit more this week.
Number one comment I got was...
looking at the news,
Yeah. You were...
Yeah.
They
I was
thought,
a little thrown off last week.
It's okay.
I thought I was going to be coming in late. It was my first show.
It's hard, your first show, it is.
People were asking me if he was just here to be eye candy. And it's like, that's not how we do things here. Everyone is merit-based. It's merit-based. And Mark Jeffrey, the sort of... are you CEO of the This Weekend shows? How does that work?
It's been really decided or announced, shall we say.
Okay, so you're one of the
floating head.
One of the guiding lights
exactly.
of
If I had my totally
network.
black shirt on against the black background, I would be like doing my Queen video.
So yes,
which we know he wants to break out at some point.
And he is joining us because our guest today is joining us via Skype instead of by sitting in this chair. Our very first Skype caller, which is extremely exciting. It is. He's in the chat room right now, Scott Sigler. I guess, are we ready with the Skype? Can we?
I'm ready if you guys are ready.
All right. Well, there he is. Hello, Scott. I'll do the intro. Our guest today, New York Times best-selling author. His books include Earth Core, Infected, and Contagious, all of which he released online as free podcasts. The hardcover edition of his latest, Ancestor, hit stores on May of 2010, but it's already earned the distinction of being the first novel in history to be serialized on satellite radio. He's also a columnist for AMCTV.com, where his Laughing in the Face of Death series runs every Thursday. Please welcome self-described cough syrup addict, Scott Sigler.
Yeah.
Hello. Quite an intro. Thank you. Ancestors out June 22nd, by the way. We bumped it up to summer blockbuster status. So other than that, perfection.
Sigler, are you already plugging your stuff? My God.
There's always one, this is going to be a trend for us, there's always one minor factual error in my intro. This is the second week in a row for those of you.
Let's play What Did Long Get Wrong?
For those of you paying attention at home, last week I misidentified when Adventure Girl joined Twitter. This week I misidentified the date of Scott Sigler's book coming out in hardcover. We will, of course, look for that in June when all the big summer blockbusters will be coming out. So, Scott, you tweeted the other day that you were watching Lost. As a California resident, how do you deal with spoilers?
I have to completely avoid Twitter on the days that the shows I want to watch come out. I've had 24 ruined. I've had many Battlestar Galactica episodes were ruined. So now it kind of sucks. I'm a bit of a Twitter addict, but I have to completely stay off of the Twitter whenever a show is coming up. Because there's no way to avoid it. Somebody is going to put something in there to spoil it. Not intentionally, but it'll happen.
So your theory, that's interesting. Your theory is that it's not intentional. Because my theory last week, we were discussing this, is that it's sort of like this jerky, like I get to see it before you do thing. I kind of feel like there's a little bit of maliciousness to it. But it's interesting. You think it's just, one of those things people are like, oh my God, I can't believe Saeed. And it's like, it just really irritates me. I don't know why it irritates me.
I just, as a horror writer who kills people in my books all the time, I believe in the general goodness of humanity. And I don't think people are really being that evil or intentional with it. But it just happens.
All right. We'll agree to disagree about the evilness
Scott,
of humanity.
you're not a fan of Lost. I mean, I've seen your tweets. I know you.
I am not a fan of Lost, and to put it in perspective about my nature, I'm also a huge fan of the Detroit Lions, who have been crappy for a very, very long time. I can't stop watching The Lost. It's like an ongoing train wreck. part of the entertainment is trying to see what they're going to do so that they can pretend they were geniuses and knew all along what was happening. And the other part of the fun is to watch the people on Twitter who actually believe.
Oh, we lost him?
He's okay. He's coming back.
There he is.
You're back. You're back. We lost you
We
for
had
a
a
second.
blip.
Well, good. That shut him up.
Can you hear me?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Can we turn him up in here, Emily? If you got.
Yeah. We get a little more volume. It's a little hard to hear.
It's kind of hard to hear him. Or did we lose him?
I'm here.
Oh, he's still there.
Oh, you're still there.
You're still there.
So
You're totally fine.
You're still the man on the wall.
So speaking of spoilers, have you ever spoiled something from one of your own stories accidentally while you're writing it?
Or on purpose.
Or on purpose?
I just had to shut down comments on all of my novel pages at scottsigler.com. Yes, Mark, that was another plug. People were going there to learn about the books and see the trailers for the books, and other fans had commented what they thought of the ending, and it was spoiling it for people. So yeah, so that happens, and I just had to, from now on, the novel pages just don't get to have comments, which is really unfortunate because people were having a good time with that.
Oh, that's too bad. Is it hard when you're on Twitter to sort of talk people through your writing process, or is that even what people are expecting? I mean, I know every time I see an author Q&A, there's always those like kind of dumb standard like, where do you get your ideas? And so do you find that that's part of what people want from you on Twitter, is to sort of hear about where the ideas come from and how you put them all together?
I get that on the website a lot, but not so much on Twitter. Mostly people on Twitter are just kind of saying hello or following, and are invariably kind of surprised when the author follows them back and engages into a couple of tweets with them. But yeah, I do get that a lot on the site and in call-ins to the show, but not so much on Twitter. Everybody's just kind of saying hello.
Cool. Is it frustrating for you as a professional writer to work in the constraints of Twitter, like 140 characters when you're used to being able to write chapters at a time?
Yeah, that can be really constraining, actually. They say that a short story writer is a failed poet and a novelist is a failed short story writer because you can't write that concisely. And 140 characters can be pretty challenging because some people have experimented with Twitter fiction and trying to do ongoing long-form narratives and multiple tweets, and I don't think it works at all. So getting it down to, I have something funny to say, I'm going to get that into 140 characters, can be challenging.
Yeah, the serialized Twitter novel thing, it's weird just because everybody's joining it at different times, so you either have to be like going back over everything you've already covered, or just making a story that's so simple you can kind of jump in anywhere. It sort of feels like it does defeat its own purpose.
Well, the thing is, in order to write one, unless somebody is following you every second of every day, which people aren't on Twitter, they come and they go, you still have to leave Twitter, go to another website, and then follow the story through the post on that website. So as long as you're going to another website anyways, what's the point? It's just something that sounded like a good idea, but it's never really caught on.
I've seen it work okay in like short form. I know Chris Miller, who used to work here at Mahalo with Mark and myself, he did like a sort of half-hour long one where he was in a coffee shop and he just pretended that zombies were there and taking it over, and that kind of worked. But yeah, going longer form, it just, you can't really work the mechanics of a story into something that's that concise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Margaret Atwood on actually when we did Bibliotech.
Oh my, Margaret Atwood.
Yes, we had Margaret Atwood.
There you go.
And her thought was that we asked her if she thought Twitter was writing, and her comment was, Twitter's not writing. It's more like smoke signals. We're just sort of signaling each other. Yeah.
See, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I feel like it is possible to be pretty writerly on Twitter, and I've definitely written things and then like we'll delete them and work on the wording and go back over it. So there is that editing creative process happens on Twitter. So I'm not sure that's 100% accurate, but the idea of that it's so,
it's something else.
It's so
it's not
concise, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting too. They talk a lot about how people now, as opposed to maybe when I was growing up, like 20 some years ago. Good Lord. They talk about how like there was just everybody was doing less writing. Everything was like watching TV or listening to music. Nobody's hobby really involved writing, and now it does. But in this, this odd new sort of form, it's like we're training people to be different kinds of writers.
Yeah. It's kind of like you've got the print, newspaper, usually print journalism, long form, and then it went to broadcast where you had to tell a story in 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and, Twitter's even taking that down more.
So yeah, Scott, what's your thoughts on that? Like, how different is it when you're writing something for Twitter versus writing something, that may turn into like a sort of longer form story? Do you feel like it's using the same sort of talent or ability or part of your brain even?
No, I think the tweets are a lot more challenging in their own way, because some of it's texting skills, some things that come very naturally to younger people now. The shorthand version of words, contractions, symbols instead of words. If you want to get as much information as you can into a tweet, you got to kind of know how to do those things. Whereas if you're writing a long-form novel, you really get to just go crazy and write whatever you want. And then when you come back through in the editing process 3 or 4 months later, you're able to clean everything up from there. So that I think they're really apples and oranges as far as communicating ideas to people.
Interesting. We got a question from the chat room. Jay Tindy asks, are you using Twitter in any unique ways, or what are some of the interesting things you've been doing with Twitter?
Well, I use it religiously to promote my stuff, because I'm putting out a free podcast episode every Sunday. I put out that Laughing in the Face of Death column on AMC TV, and then I record that as a podcast. So those are out Wednesdays and Thursdays, respectively. And Twitter is one of the best ways to just immediately let a lot of people know I've got new content up at the site. Go check it out. And I've also used Twitter quite a bit for mining ideas for the column over at AMC. It's called Laughing in the Face of Death, so it's kind of a humorous look at horror movies. And when I'm stuck for an idea, or I can't come up with enough movies that say today's column is about ectoplasm, protoplasm, primordial slime, movies like The Blob or things of that nature, I'll just go into the Twitter sphere and say, what are your favorite movies of category X? What do you like about them? And I'll get 40, 50, 60 comments back, and there's always stuff I haven't thought of in there. So I actually use Twitter and the Twitter sphere in my content creation, and it helps quite a bit.
Yeah. You have a lot of different stuff sort of going on to promote. How do you sort of balance how much self-promotion you want to do versus just sort of interesting or funny content itself? Or do you think about it? I mean, do you just, whenever you've got something new to promote, you just throw it out there?
I think about it a lot, because Twitter's kind of a promotional tool for me. It's a way to let people know about new content. It's also part of the branding exercise as an author. So I'm trying to be cognizant of everything that I put out there is going to be seen by 100 to 1,000, 2,000 people, etc. And so I'm consciously avoid getting in any kind of Twitter flame war or anything along those lines, and realizing that as a source of entertainment, the stuff I write is escapist entertainment. I'm not out there purporting to be, I'm the expert in X, I'm the utter authority in X, and I'm very important, la la la. I'm just an entertaining writer. So the stuff I put out, I try and keep in that vein, and just put out humorous things, interesting things, or links to other things that pertain to the fiction.
Yeah, and crowdsourcing stuff like, what's your favorite sort of British horror films or something, that's pretty obvious that it would be a good use for Twitter. But there is a lot of sort of science and technical kind of stuff that works its way into your writing. Do you ever use Twitter for that stuff? I mean, do you ever try to crowdsource, like, how does this work on a cellular level, or something that would work its way into one of your novels?
Absolutely. I've done that quite a bit. If I get stuck, I've got some biology PhDs that are kind enough to help consult for me for the stories, but every now and then I'll need information right away. I'll just throw a question out in the Twitter sphere, and it's amazing how many people will get back to you. Oh, I happen to be a mechanical engineer at NASA. How can I help you? It's crazy the amount of feedback that you can get, and really accurate expert feedback as well. And then we just used it yesterday because we are shooting a video trailer for the upcoming novel Ancestor. We'll be shooting that next week in the Los Angeles area. So we tweeted out, see if anybody had a location with 4 or 5 inches of snow, trees, etc., someplace up in the mountains. And we got feedback immediately and almost got a set out of it right there. So within 5 minutes, we just throwing out whatever general question comes up in the business of writing and promoting, you're going to get answers back right away. I'd forgotten about that, but that's one of the best things that I use Twitter for.
Interesting, yeah. You are the first person I have interviewed who has his own wiki. There is a Scott Sigler wiki with all of your characters and everything on it. Do you edit your own wiki, or is that considered bad form?
No, I don't edit my own wiki. It's all done by the fans, particularly one fan, Carmen Wellman, whose name on the site is Gamork. She's really like the driving force behind it. But it's wide open, and it's open for any fan to go in there. And I know eventually that's going to create some bad situations. But overall, it has become an awesome resource for new fans coming in. They can learn all about what stories characters have been in. And believe it or not, it's a resource for me. So several times in the novel writing process, sometimes the novels will take 4, 5, 6, 7 months to write. I'll forget what I said or what I listed a character in during an ongoing podcast. I'll go back into my own wiki. I will read what other people have put in about the characters in order to refresh my memory. It'll be like, oh, that's what I was doing with that character. That's what kind of weapon I carried. So it's a trip. The wiki knows more about my stuff than I do. So yeah, bad things will happen eventually, but I'm not going to screw with that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's very fortunate. Yeah, it's like a little sort of ongoing notepad. You don't have to go back over your own stuff. People are kind of cataloging it for you. I wonder if the Lost guys do that too with the Lostopedia.
Well, I know for a fact that J.K. Rowling has on more than one occasion forgotten what she had done in a previous book, and while she's writing a Harry Potter novel, gone into the bookstore and bought a copy of like Sorcerer's Stone. It's completely embarrassing. I hate doing it, but I have to do it because you just forget what you wrote.
And those books aren't really even that complicated. It's like forget what happened at Hogwarts. It's like
it's strange. You do forget though. It's weird.
Yes, that is interesting. So the AMC horror column. We have to touch on this because I'm also a huge movie fan. What do you think is the most underappreciated horror movie that people don't know about?
Ooh,
if you could tell them about one horror movie they don't already know about, what would it be?
My hands down favorite underappreciated horror movie is Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead is a great movie.
1988, Stan Winston special effects. It's just absolutely one of my favorites. Vastly misunderstood. It is the best Appalachian monster horror movie that you're going to see this year.
If you see just one Appalachian monster horror movie this year. I was going to say the one that I thought was missing off of your best sort of contemporary British directors, Ravenous, which was Antonia Bird, a British director, a classic horror film.
Oh, man, yeah. That's the other fun thing about Twitter is when you write a column that has any kind of opinion about movies, you find out very quickly the stuff that you missed. Like within minutes, you're like, you forgot so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, forgot Ravenous. That sucks.
Yeah, I was watching that like, oh, Ravenous, he has to hear about this from me. And fortunately, I have a platform that is much louder than just a tweet.
We have this broadcast to tell you.
Right, thank God. We have this broadcast where I can let you know that you missed Ravenous. Okay, so there are a couple questions I ask everybody who comes on the show, or I'm going to, because you're only number 2. Have you ever drunk tweeted? And if so, what was it?
I have drunk tweeted. I will not discuss what was tweeted during the drunk tweets. That is between me and 5,000 to 6,000 other people. Thank you very much.
Okay, fair enough. We'll have to go dig through ourselves and find that.
Did he delete it afterwards?
Oh, yes. Did you go and edit your own drunk tweet?
Hey, I don't edit my wiki, but I edit my tweets all the time.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. You won't go blind. They were saying in the chat room you'll go blind from editing your own wiki. But no, I think editing your own tweets is okay. Yeah. And also, what would it take for you, or what does it take for you to block someone?
Well, I have a part of my daily routine is every morning, everybody who follows me on Twitter, I go look at their Twitter profile and I follow them back. Even if it looks like possibly like they're an MLM or whatever, or maybe like, yeah, it's my bed and breakfast in Massachusetts. Like, yeah, I want to follow that tweet. That's going to make a lot of sense and be pertinent to me. But I'll still follow a lot of those. So I block the second I see anything spammy, or if I follow someone because they followed me, and then they have an auto follow set up that has a link to their Forex site or whatever, that will also get an instant block. And then some of the more vocal politiots, either from the left or from the right, that are just going to sit there and scream all day long and not listen to any kind of discourse, I'll just block them. And the final thing is the newbies who tweet literally everything that's happening, every song that they play, every photo that they post, every blog post that they read, that all winds up getting auto-tweeted. So I'll block those. Other than that, it's not too many problems.
One more question from the chat room from Dishboy. Scott, how often do you end up tweeting one-on-one with people you just made contact with?
All the time. It probably happens 5-6 times a day. As I add new people, the people who just followed you are fairly active on Twitter and haven't twit-faded yet. So when they get that follow and they're surprised, oh, this guy's really out there and he's following me back, I'll always get, the first comment is always, oh, this is an auto reply robot. Well, if it wasn't, I would say hi to you, and then I have to, no, this is actually me. I am actually responding to all the tweets. Yeah. So probably 5 or 6 times a day, I'll get into a DM Twitter exchange with people. That goes back to your earlier question about what do you think about what you tweet. As soon as it gets to the second or third reply to a person, I move that over into direct messaging, just because there's a lot of people out there and they don't need to be seeing fragments of a conversation that would require them to go click on multiple links just to see what the hell is going on. So I move that into direct messaging and have that exchange. It happens all the time. It's fun.
Yeah, that is, by the way, an ideal segue I'm about to take. Because Twitter does not thread their conversations like that when you reply. So it's very easy to fall into that trap of getting, like, lost midway through where you see somebody replying to someone and you say, oh, that sounds interesting. But then you have to go on this, like, foraging scavenger hunt to find where the conversation actually begun, which is something that Google Buzz really does a lot better, which is a perfect segue into Google Buzz, which, of course, we have to discuss on the show. So I will, Scott, please jump in if you have an opinion about Google Buzz. We'd love to hear it. Google Buzz kind of launched this week. Everybody is sort of trying it out, testing the water, seeing how they like it. Some people, like Mark here, and even more so my boss Jason, very bullish on it. It's been declared everything from like a Twitter killer to a Facebook killer. Can we just like something without declaring it a killer? Does everything that we like have to come along and kill something else?
So we should probably clarify a few things. So the reason why a lot of people think of it as a Twitter killer or a Facebook killer is because it's basically integrated into Gmail, right? So anyone who has a Gmail account already has a Buzz account, and they already have a friend list because whoever you've emailed is automatically added, or some subset of them is automatically added to your friend list, right? Or your follow list. So they've got a built-in installed base overnight, which is unlike any other company that launches something out of the gate, right? So, and it is Google, and Google's a huge company, and they have a lot of other properties. So these things are now integrated into search, integrated into Gmail, any other Google offerings like Picasso. I think Picasso's So basically there's a lot of threads tying these things together,
YouTube,
right? And then there's Google Profiles, which if you've set up your Google profile, you own that as well. So so basically the idea is that Google is firing a shot across the bow of Facebook and Twitter with this product. I mean, that's pretty clear. Everyone agrees with that. Right?
Right. Okay. No, I think we'd all agree that it folds in some of the same kinds of activities.
And they do threaded discussions very well, which has been a weakness of Twitter.
Yes.
So, and I'm very bullish on it as well. I'm not as bullish on it as Jason is.
Right.
For really one big reason, and that's that kids are now living their lives inside of Facebook. They don't even go to their email. They don't use email. Email is for old people. Email is for the man, right? So
everyone uses email.
No, that's not true. The kids these days are
the
teens, and probably even college kids are living their lives in Facebook, and they're Facebook messaging one another.
Right.
They're not using Gmail, so therefore, launching an offering inside of Gmail does not affect them and does not pull them out of Facebook. That's my argument back.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me is, Google's never cracked social. They have search down, but they've never been able to do social. So
Orkut, man, come on. That was amazing.
What was the one country it was popular
in? Brazil.
There's like one
Brazil, yeah. Big in Brazil.
But yeah, and that's what I'm interested in is because they've never cracked it, so it'd be interesting to see if it catches on and they're able to make some headway in that space. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could definitely see the argument, like that Facebook people might start migrating over here. Instead of some of the things they do on Facebook, it's less noisy than Facebook, which is a sort of advantage. And it's even, people are comparing it to FriendFeed. It's less noisy than FriendFeed as well, I think. Like, FriendFeed was kind of all over the place. There were so many threads that were just like, hey, it's a picture of me making a mean face. Everybody post your own. And it's like, I don't need to...
It's also a really specific community.
Yeah, it's like, I don't need to see everybody's mean face. Just give me an interesting link or something. And Google Buzz seems to not be that much so insidery, so clicky. Like that right off the bat, but I don't know, it just seems to me like it doesn't really pose an immediate threat to Twitter. I'm doing different things in Buzz than I am in Twitter.
I mean, I think it's just a natural progression. I mean, Twitter was really the first out of the gate for that type of communication, and then Facebook kind of tried it with the updates and the ongoing feed, and I think this is just the natural progression of where things are going. I think there's going to be room for all of them.
There's one other big point to make about Google Buzz, and that is based on open standards. Unlike Facebook, for example, if you wanted to make a better news feed inside of Facebook, you can make apps. There is an app platform inside of Facebook, so that's how Farmville is made and those things. but there is no way for you to improve the core functionality of Facebook. Because Google Buzz is based on basically open technology, third parties can come in and create a much richer, better primary experience. So that there can be a lot of innovation. It's basically the same form of attack on Facebook and Twitter that Android is upon the iPhone.
Exactly.
Yeah. The one thing I think it really does have on Twitter, you can do the same kinds of interaction, but you can also use it almost like Tumblr. I mean, Tumblr is another service, I think. Tumblr and Posterous, this is something they should be watching out for, because I actually tried it the other day and wrote basically a blog post just right there in Google Buzz. And one thing that's really got on Tumblr doesn't even have comments built in. You have to go to Discus, get the comment, start it over there, embed it in your Tumblr, which is just like 3 extra steps most people will never do. So Buzz is really like Tumblr right off the bat, plus comments.
Yeah.
I really think it's probably a bigger threat to those kinds of services than even something like Facebook or Twitter. I mean, it's really like blogging.
Right now, I mean, it's very new.
True.
It's a week old. The thing is, like,
not even.
It's not even a week old. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what people do with it. The third-party builders, and I think it will evolve very fast. And it could very well pose a threat, in 3 or 4 months. So, Sigler, what do you think about all this?
Yeah,
I haven't been up too much on it. At this point, with all the crazy social media stuff that's going on, I've stopped trying to be the early adopter of anything, and just wait and see what catches on, and then try and pick up on it shortly after it starts to be in its ascendant phase. Because I spent too much time on sites like Bebo and other sites where you invest valuable time into developing your presence there and trying to understand how to properly use it and interact with people, and then it totally fades and is replaced by something else. So, I'll wait to see what happens with this crazy Google action. If it takes off, I'll be there.
Yeah, curse you, Pounce. Exactly what happened. All that time, all those hours in Pounce.
I have a question, Scott. How do you consume Twitter now? Do you use applications, or do you use the web? How do you mostly interact with Twitter?
I'm mostly using TweetDeck for Twitter. Both I use TweetDeck, and then where's my darn phone? And then I'm on the phone all the time using Twitter. I'm trying to say, I think it's Tweety. I use Tweety on the phone. So that's pretty much it. TweetDeck and Tweety. I mean, I can't even go for a friggin' walk outside, take my dog for a walk without checking the Twitter feed and seeing what's going on.
I totally do that when I walk my dog too. I'm on Twitter.
We're all addicted.
And then sometimes it really is bad.
The minute your phone blinks.
Right, and then sometimes I'm on it and he pulls, and it's like this weird, snapping me back to reality. Like, oh wait, there's like a dog. I'm like outside and on a walk because I get so sucked in. So that's interesting. What is one thing one last question I had prepared for Scott. What's one thing every author should know before directly engaging their audience using social media?
Well, every author, I think there's 2 types of authors. There's fiction and nonfiction, and I think that nonfiction authors can feel a lot more free to tweet fairly regularly about the subject in which the subject matter in which they are an expert. Because if someone's reading your book on mountain biking, or they're reading your book on how to hike across the country, that's probably why they're following you, because you know a lot about that stuff, like Adventure Girl in your last episode. So you can tweet about that stuff all you want. If you're a fiction author, I think it's a little different, because you can't really tweet about your story content. You're either going to be giving spoilers, or people aren't going to know what the hell you're talking about, and they're going to unfollow you. So for a fiction author, it's far more of just using Twitter as a conduit to share your personality and show that you are accessible and you're not some jackass author up in an ivory tower who's busy thinking about how a science fiction is very important and is going to change the world. Unless that's who you are, and if it is going to change the world, then tweet about that by all means. So the bottom line to it is, if you're nonfiction, go crazy and tweet about the stuff that you know, and if you're fiction, just let people know what kind of a person you are and just communicate with them.
What about responding to criticism? I mean, obviously, if you're putting your work out there, you're going to get some kind of negative feedback at some point. Are you ever tempted to go at people who sort of come at you with negativity, or do you just kind of let it roll over you?
It's a little bit of both. A lot of times, if it's a particularly harsh comment, and my perception is that they didn't actually read the story, I'll retweet it and let everybody else out there see the tweet, and then things just kind of happen from themselves from there. If I see a critical tweet and it's clear they do know the content and they just think I suck, I'll probably reply to them directly. And Gary Vaynerchuk's fantastic at this, and he's a real role model in how to handle this. People, because his book is nonfiction, crush it as nonfiction, and it's very opinionated, and some people don't like it, so they will tweet harsh things about it, and he invariably replies, really sorry you didn't like the book, maybe I can do better on it for you next time, give me another try, I'll see if I can do better. That kind of a thing can go a long way to turning a critic into a fan. Again, they see you as a human being, and they're like, okay, well, I hated his first couple novels, but maybe I'll try the next one. And that's just crazy for someone to try products, not like them, and then see that you are an accessible person and give you another shot, and maybe they do like that book down the road. The final element is that sometimes if people tweet a blog post, it goes back into that same evaluation process. If it's a really critical blog post, but it's fair, they point out shortcomings in the work, I'll go in there and comment and say, hey, sorry, you can't win them all. I'll try and do better on the next one. And if it's a really unfair blog post, at times I'll actually get into it over on their space. But again, Twitter's just a different animal. There's so many people who are there that you're just entertainment to people. So you don't want to drag out any kind of a flame war or get any kind of name calling going out on Twitter, because that's not the place for it.
And if you're Gary Vee, you could just say, like, well, I hope you like one of my next 85 books that I'm contracted to write already.
That's one.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's just more. Every week there's another one on the way. Name that hashtag. You guys want to play Name That
It's
Hashtag?
time to play.
There you go.
All right, Scott, I will explain the rules to you in case you missed it on last week's show. I have picked 3 hashtags. Each of them was trending at some point this week. So, we keep it fair. We keep it fair here. I will read off tweets that had this hashtag without reading the hashtag, of course. First person who thinks that they know it, just jump in. I was doing it with more rules last week. Forget it. If you think you know the hashtag, just jump in, shout it out, and chat room, please feel free to play along with us. Don't cheat. Don't look up on search.twitter.com. That's lame. So let's see how you guys do. Here's the first one. I'll give you the hint. You'll hate it. That's the hint. You'll hate it. Number 1.
Lost.
God, it's a great show. Come on, it's a little silly.
See, we love Lost.
It's a little silly.
Scott
I
doesn't
don't know.
love
I'm
it.
lost with Lost.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
Lon and I love it.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, me too.
I can't resist. I know they're all dying and they're coming back.
I'm too busy on Twitter to watch Lost.
It's become very soap opera in a way
It
when
is.
you're talking about it. Like people are in comas and then they're coming back, and like long lost characters are
That
reappearing.
does sound very soap
It's a
opera.
little
Yeah, it
soap
is.
opera, but I still love it. That is not the right answer. Not lost. Number 1, when people fart in a bar. That was at Neddelicious. Number 2, fake ass people. Remember, we're looking for what was the hashtag that united all these together. Number 3, people kissing they dogs in the mouth. That was at Tip & Co. Number 4, cars that pass me, get in front of me, then drive slow. That's The Quiet One. Number 5, when people touch my face. At Stephanie. Any guesses? No guesses.
I'm completely lost.
Number 6.
No pun intended.
Number 6. I don't understand why grown-ass people think it's okay to not wash their hands after using a bathroom. That's effing disgusting. That was at Conscious Owl. And number 7. People who swear they hate Gaga, then they turn around and have her blasting on their iPod. And that was at I Heart Gaga. That's all 7. No one. Too hard
got
again.
nothing.
I always make
Yeah,
these too
I know.
hard.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, like, you have to
Well
watch
said.
the trends
The
during the
game
week.
is too
Yeah.
hard. Oh, we got somebody in the chat room. Jay Tindy in the chat room got it. Hashtag pet peeves.
Oh,
Hashtag
nice.
pet peeves. Exactly right.
I get the game now. All right, cool.
Now you get it. Now you get it. Okay. This next one may be a little easier. The hint is naming names. So it's a person's name. Number 1. It's 2010. We need to focus on more pressing issues than this. That was at Jeansy. Number 2. Get off his sack already. He's a decent dude. That was at Tim Stewart. Remember, it was trending this week.
Former president?
Not former president, no. Number 3, we'll never hear the end of it, at Rissy Bobby. Number 4, I am trying to figure out why a man who says it's his biggest dream to write pornography is being taken so seriously, at Actionary RD. I would think that one was the giveaway.
Y'all, I don't know.
Number 5, this one should definitely be the giveaway. Number 5, who reads Playboy interviews anyway? That was at Bobby Caps.
Oh,
We got it in the chat room. The app show,
Yeah.
congratulations. The answer John Mayer.
John Mayer.
Hashtag John
right,
Mayer.
right. I forgot about that.
So that's you're not paying attention to trending topics
I know,
or
so
the
sorry.
news. Let's be honest. so no trending topics, no news. I will keep that in mind. This next one I thought was the most challenging. But it has to do.
We're gonna do really well.
It has to do. The hint will be this is sort of Scott's area of expertise.
Oh.
So he may have a little.
No pressure, Scott.
Scott, you may have a little leg up here on this last
So
one.
if I don't get this, you're setting me up to be a jackass. Thank you, Lon.
That's exactly it. It is hashtag jackass. Congratulations. You did it. No. Okay. Number 1, SIDSS, Sudden Infant Death Star Syndrome. That was at Colt64. Number 2, The Day My Bowels Stood Still, at Rich Y. Number 3.
Oh, combo movies or something like that. It's like it's like
You're on the right track. You're on the right track.
Combination movies or.
I'll keep going. I'll keep going. Number 3, Silent Runs, at Jennifer SF. This one should give it away. Number 4. Number 4.
I don't remember the wording of it, but I know it's like combo films or something like that.
Well, think about what's being combined. Number 4, Qui-Gon Gingivitis, at Paul TMD 452.
Wow.
Disease combos? I don't know.
Something
close.
there. Number 5.
He gets 50%.
Number 5, Krabs Nebula at Bad Smithy. That was my favorite.
Nice.
Number 6, Isaac Asimov at Hudson Net.
Science fiction diseason?
That's it. Sci-fi diseases.
Sci-fi.
Well
Nice.
done. Sci-fi
Totally guessed my way
diseases.
through it. I got one. I can't believe I got one.
Sci-fi. That was on target. I do my best. It's too hard. I don't know how to make it easier. I've invented a game that's too challenging.
Well, I got one.
You got
something.
We got there. All right, good enough. Let's see. So I guess we'll go into the news.
The news.
With Mike Rocco.
Dun dun dun.
Do we have a
little news thing?
jingle for that?
Do we have a news jingle?
We do.
We do.
Sleep at the switch over there. There it is. See, the newspaper says I'm the sexiest man in the world. That's why we have to show that every time. I refuse to miss my opportunity. What's our first news story?
All right. So last week we talked about some stats that said teenagers might not be as active on Twitter as on Facebook.
Which I've just been assured they don't use email either.
Yeah.
So
Apparently.
they're just Farmville 24/7. There's no other time.
Mafia Wars in Farmville. That's it.
I gotta plant soybeans. I can't.
But so this week, some new stats came out from Royal Pingdom that showed that in January, the all-time high of 1.2 billion tweets were sent during the month, which is 16 times the amount from a year ago. So with Facebook about 400 million users, Twitter's around 50. Are you of the opinion that it's sort of Facebook or Twitter, or do you think they can both coexist and both have thriving
It
communities?
is the age-old question.
Coexist.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook or Twitter. For me, they coexist just because I have different people following me in both sort of zones. Like Facebook, I have a lot of like high school friends, a lot of old friends, like my parents follow me there, family members. It's good for people who I haven't connected with for a while, and it's a lot of that kind of stuff. Like
It's more mainstream, Facebook is.
Yes. I had an old college friend who he's selling like the truck that he had ever since we were in college, his old Ford Explorer. So we set up a group, and all of our college friends are like leaving posts and memories and pictures of the truck back in the day. And so I mean, it's great for stuff like that. And none of those people, because those are not tech kind of people, none of those people are on Twitter. None of them are following me there. Twitter is much more like people who like This Week in Startups or This Week in YouTube or know about Mahalo or who I've met in the industry over the years. Like it's
more
really
niche.
It's a little more niche. So for me, they have no problem coexisting, and it's really sort of different spheres when I'm in one or the other. Yeah. And also Facebook, I can check in like once a day and feel like I'm sort of doing my diligence in Facebook. If I only checked in once a day on Twitter, I'd miss everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, for me, this is an interesting question because I noticed sometime in this past year, there's a set of friends I have outside of the industry who have nothing to do with Twitter. They are on Facebook, but they're not on Twitter. And what I found was when I interact with them, I feel like they're sort of outside. You know what I mean? And I've never felt that way before, but it's now become this sort of thing where if they're not on Twitter, I don't want to say it's like become like, well, I can't talk to them, but it's become
unclean.
I want to make sure I phrase this correctly, but there is definitely now a little bit of a difference.
It's a cast
Yeah,
system. That's what you're setting
I
up.
do feel it now.
You're a Twitter
I never
brummie,
felt it. Yeah,
and they're untouchable.
It's a little bit odd, but I have to.
Well,
I'm being completely honest about it. It does
Facebook's
feel
more
that way.
mature, right?
Yeah.
Facebook's gone more mainstream. We've got, the high school friends. My mom's on Facebook now. That really creeped me out when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, mom's on Facebook. Mom does not understand Twitter at all, thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to stop posting my streaking pictures because my mom's on Facebook. What's that all about?
Come on.
I immediately went on, did the whole limited profile thing with Mom. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, and then my mom came on Facebook and why are you talking about me and how I don't know about tech on your show? So Mom, I know my mom is watching. Mom, I know you're very tech savvy. Just don't have time for the Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I've been interested to see how, because everyone talks about the Twitterification of Facebook. If, as they become more similar to Twitter, if some of those users who love Facebook now for all the reasons you talk about will sort of jump ship or become less engaged in the service. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I feel like when you move Twitter stuff into Facebook, it just really makes Facebook more robust. It's not really enticing. You want to go to Twitter now and...
Well, Facebook's heavier. It requires more of an investment, and it's richer. It's like dark.
Does it really require more of an investment? How much time do you spend on Twitter versus how much time you spend on Facebook every day?
To get going on Facebook, it's more of an investment, right? You have to create your presence. Whereas Twitter, it's like throw your email address on and you're tweeting.
But then Twitter has you hooked, and you're checking it every 5 seconds.
Well, that's true. That's true as well. But I mean,
Right.
I think a lot of people that are not in tech or sort of media don't get Twitter. They don't understand. Why would I want to do this? I just don't understand why I would want to do this. They do understand why they would want to be in Facebook, and why they want to interact with their friends, and put pictures up and tag each other and play Farmville and all that stuff.
Right.
But continually sort of blasting out what you're doing is not something that most people
the use case
understand
is much
why
more specific with Twitter.
Unless you have something to plug or you're communicating with people in your industry. I don't know. People just don't understand it, I think. I still don't think it's crossed into the mainstream consciousness the way Facebook has. And I don't know that it will.
I think it's something people are aware of. I don't think they've been sold on this is something you personally need to be doing. And I think maybe that's part of the way the media portrays it, which is, and we were talking about this with Adventure Girl last week, where there's something like it's very sort of flighty and silly. The media is always portraying it as, it's just people telling you what they're eating for lunch.
Yeah,
it's just goofy nerds, and they're telling you about video games, and it's being portrayed as sort of fundamentally unserious. And even
but Twitter's now become my primary news source. I find out stuff.
Too. Absolutely.
You too. I mean, I see stuff on CNN a half hour later. After I see it on Twitter.
When I was running the Mahalo News team,
yes.
I mean, we were as a company getting the news to put on our site, usually from Twitter. Obviously you look for, is this confirmed? Is this just some guy tweeting? So you don't end up, front paging like Lil Wayne's dead every week or whatever it is on Twitter. I mean, it is a great.
You should have a Who's Dead This Week column.
Yeah, I mean, it's
become my primary news source
things.
as well.
What's that, Scott?
It's my primary nurse as well. The other day, there was that plane. The door fell off the plane in Miami and landed in a parking lot. My wife saw something on TV and said there was this huge plane crash in Miami. I'm like, oh no! And I go to Twitter. I can't find any tweets about it. And I was like, no, that didn't happen. It's not real. If people were dead, it would be on Twitter. It's got to be something minor, and it turned out to be something minor. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that the way CNN uses Twitter really captures that yet. Probably because they don't want it to look like
it's a primary news source.
You can use this little free application online and get news faster than you can with us. It's always like, tell Rick Sanchez what you think about some crap.
I like how Rick interacts though with Twitter. He actually does really well, I think, in terms of engaging people with Twitter. But he's really the only one out of that entire news team. I feel
and
like
it's not really using Twitter the fundamental way. It's like a comment thread. It's like tell me what you think about this, and which still to somebody like my mom or a mainstream audience, they're not going to feel like I got to go there because they don't need to. Get the world about their opinions about things. If it was portrayed as the more sort of rich environment where you can do all kinds of things, from promoting things you're involved in to keeping in touch with people to learning about the news.
That's why these coexist, because they're used for different things. There's some crossover between them, but it's such a new phenomenon, and it's just, it's maturing.
I think the mainstream media is sort of starting to get it. I mean, I think MSNBC, purchased @Breaking News on Twitter, which is sort of my favorite go-to Twitter handle for finding information. So
they're excellent about getting it out there.
Yeah.
So
and I can't think of too many times they've been wrong. Actually.
Yeah, they're pretty accurate. So
sort of the TMZ of Twitter, where it's like they're always first, and then they end up being right. What's the next news story?
The Olympics are coming up, which we have full coverage on Mahalo.com.
Ooh, not just Scott with the promos.
Mahalo.
Nicely done.
There was a little bit of controversy because the IOC basically reached out to all the athletes saying no tweeting, no posting of images, nothing. And this big sort of thing happened. People were sort of really sort of enraged. They want to, athletes want to share their stuff.
Is that during events or the entire time they're at the Olympics?
So here's the thing. So they released a statement that said that they can't post pictures, video, behind-the-scenes operation, and went on to say all this other stuff. But then there was clarification that came out that said basically no pictures or videos during the opening ceremonies, the closing ceremonies, and the actual live events.
Wait. If I'm a private citizen, is it just the athletes or is it the people in the audience?
They can't really stop.
That's the thing. This is like
if you
it's
tweet
like
about your tuna on rye,
this.
you lose that silver medal, son. Go to the back of the line.
That's it.
So I mean,
Michael Phelps.
Is this seriously? Are they trying to?
I think it's one of those things where they have to sort of say it because they have all these sponsors and the people covering. They're paying lots of money. But I think it's a little bit absurd. I mean,
well, that is absurd.
It's a little bit
the
silly.
Opening ceremonies. What are you going to give away? Like, well, Paraguay's here. We know.
Right?
It's okay.
So what do you think about this? Do you think sort of? I mean, you see it too with corporations. ESPN had that big thing a couple months back where you had employees tweeting about the company and about different things.
Right. This happened in the NBA as well. I recall there was a player.
Exactly.
Well, that's different.
New Jersey Nets who was tweeting during halftime. He was like, "We gotta hustle in the second half or whatever." So that one I get.
Well, I think that okay, in a situation like that, the players works for the NBA, right? The NBA does, I believe, in that instance, have a right to constrain whatever sort of media the player is putting out
during the game.
Right? During the game,
During the game, that makes sense.
because the player is the media, right? So and the NBA has the right to resell that. So, but in terms of the audience or something like
audience, you can't.
Yeah, no, this was specifically just for the athletes.
You can't. I mean, obviously they can't tell the audience.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
you
what
can't
I'm
tweet
saying.
during the opening ceremonies.
like,
Seems unenforceable, really.
No, it's interesting.
Do you
I mean,
understand social media?
They will send Mary Lou Retton to your house, kick your ass.
So, what do you think about the athletes, and their ability to?
I'm sort of liberal in the way that I think trying to constrain people and censor people is almost always silly unless it's really important. Like, even the NBA example, like, I get that. I get why they would think, okay, we really don't want players, like, giving away inside information from the locker room during a game.
It's one thing if they're saying, here's what our strategy is for the second half, but...
wouldn't say that. I think you kicked off the team.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea behind that, but I probably still would not have it as an embedded, enshrined policy. I probably would still want people to be sort of more free. And, I mean, what's the worst case scenario there? Somebody says something that's sort of insidery from the event, and then it just drives more interest to the event.
That's a good point.
Athletes out there doing the, like, walk around who were, like, live tweeting it or taking pictures, like, that's just
And they're connecting with their fans.
And that's just going to generate more worldwide interest.
Yeah.
People are watching it. People are looking at the images. I mean, it just it seems really like just like old people who don't really get it and don't understand what's going on.
Yeah,
and think that it's nefarious in some way.
I mean, I agree with you. I think at the same time, though, I mean, if you look at technology, someone has a large following. I mean, camera phones now have a pretty decent video camera. You could potentially see down the road live streaming of events, which could compete with broadcast rights, which obviously.
But is someone live streaming from their phone really going to compete with
not going to be
a
well
huge
produced.
network
Right.
there
Right.
with a truck?
Well, and again, I mean, I think you could look at that from the reverse way of, good, there's competition now. NBC's got to, up its game. It's got to make that coverage more compelling, or I'll go watch it on, Justin TV from some guy's, iPhone.
Yeah.
So, it's just another level of sort of competition, which, it always works out better for us, the viewers. And somebody, I think, was noting you could, you streaming from the front of the bobsled, or there's all kinds of fun stuff you can come up with. That would be awesome.
Pretty awesome.
And they
I
actually
would
watch
that.
I don't know if you guys saw
That'd be
Google
really cool.
Street View has done Whistler and the whole area that the Olympics are going to be in.
Oh, wow.
So you can actually do Google Street View down the ski runs and
really?
in the bobsled area.
Oh,
You can.
that's awesome.
It's really cool. So go check that out. But that's a great example to me of using this technology to enhance the event, to make it more compelling and more interesting. And it's not. I
the
wouldn't.
Millions of people who can't be there too.
Right, and I wouldn't even have thought about that, but then you're using it and you're like, oh, this is really cool. You get to actually see what the bobsled, like where they go down before they go.
Yeah, that's really
and,
cool.
walk it yourself. It's really interesting. So I always feel like the first impulse is always going to be shut it down,
Right.
censor. We got to be the
Control.
only view.
Right.
But that's really not. I don't think they're threatened by Twitter. I think Twitter enhances that big event. And another prime example would be stuff like the Grammys, which are boring. But when you follow it with a bunch of comedians live tweeting it, it's fun now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Exactly.
it's worth watching.
Like yourself. I was watching what you were tweeting.
I try my best. Well, I loved it. It was
Lon's a
making,
comedian.
because I have to watch award shows for work a lot of the time because we're covering them, and a lot of them are. I mean, I like the Oscars, but a lot of the other ones are just boring, and it's sort of a slog. The Golden Globes is totally a slog. But you know,
It's so long.
it's so long, but I mean,
Always
and
long.
I don't really care if Precious wins a bunch of stuff. I'm not really that emotionally invested in it. But you know, watching Doug Benson live tweet it is funny, and it makes the show better. And so they don't. It's not like I'm not going to watch the show because Doug Benson's giving everything away on Twitter. They work well together.
Exactly.
All right, so another story this week, Twitter.
This will be the last one because we're already at an hour.
Okay, one more.
Last news.
Last story. So Twitter hired a new CFO this week, an ex-Pixar exec, Ali Ragwani. So my question is, so clearly they're focused on getting their ad platform, which is expected to be released this year. What do you think about their monetization plan? What are your
Monetization? Really?
What are your expectations? I mean, right now, basically they're just making money. I think about $4 million a year off the deals with Google and Bing to get the
pulled
fire
into
hose.
search, yeah.
What are your thoughts on their monetization plan? Do you think their ad platform or whatever it is they're going to launch is going to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been the sort of skeptic. On This Week at Startups, we have this discussion a lot. And I originally was the skeptic of, like, how are they ever going to make money? I mean, it's cool. I love it. But how is this ever going to be, like, a huge business? And Jason sort of talked me off of that ledge a while ago. That, like, look, when a company is this big and there are this many
They'll make
people,
money somehow.
they're going to find their opening, even if it takes them 5 tries.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. And, you know, reminiscent of the early days of Google, when people were like,
Exactly.
wow, this is super awesome, but what are they going to do?
I was going to say, it reminds me
Right.
of the early web.
Yeah.
Like, people were always saying,
Yeah.
yeah, the web, I don't know. No one's going to make money on that thing. I mean, that really was a discussion. That really was, you know, people debated whether the web could be monetized. So
I'm more curious about why a Pixar guy. You know?
Yeah, it is kind of an odd choice. I don't know.
I exactly
couldn't really tell you
what
why.
the thinking is behind that. You know, I'm sure they've got some ideas. I mean, Pixar being another company that early on was like making 4-minute digital shorts, and nobody knew how they would ever turn that into a real business.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like Twitter's gonna figure it out. I'm pretty confident that within 2 or 3 years this.
Well,
will
Jason has said. I
be
mean, I
a
remember
moot point.
Jason has said, you know, why don't they sell the suggested user list? You know,
Yes.
basically,
Well, that
open
was
those
his
spots up.
suggestion because he's in the market.
He'd love very much to be on that.
That's
list.
interesting. Scott, would you pay to be on the suggested user list? And if so, how much?
I would not pay to be on the suggested user list. I wound up being on it, which has drawn a lot of followers, which is great. But the second you start paying to be on the suggested user list, it's going to be full of tweets by Ford and tweets by Chevy, which no one ever actually reads. And companies are still spending money on developing these quote-unquote strategies. I mean, I could be wrong on that. Maybe some people do actually follow, you know, Bob's Antiques in Nantucket on Twitter. But as soon as it starts to be paid for, it's all going to be dominated by corporations, and everybody's just going to tune that out.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I guess they could solve that by, like, editing them, like certain, you know, they'll review your feed and decide if it's interesting enough and then let you pay or something. But yeah, I agree. I never want to follow, like, the big corporate.
Well, it's got to be. I mean, I don't think if they could afford, we're going to do it. They would find a personality, and you'd follow that personality. That personality would then be, you know, talk about other stuff, and every once in a while talking about Ford.
You would hope, although none of the companies have figured that out yet. The other thing that bothers me is when companies are on there and they don't respond to you when you're talking to them directly about their product.
Yes.
Like Fandango totally screwed me when I was trying to get Avatar tickets.
Virgin American
with
did
them,
pretty
too.
good.
I tried to get, you know, and it said the transaction went through, but then I never got any feedback from them, like
That
an
happened to me
email.
last week.
And so, you know, I tried right in the back, and they're very hard to get in touch with. And so I go on Twitter, and at Fandango, they have it, and they tweet out. And I sent 2 messages, I never heard back. And it's like, come on.
But you know who's good at that is Virgin. Virgin's been
Some
great.
companies are, and
Great.
Comcast cares. That
Yeah,
guy's
I was
really
going to say
good
there were a
about
couple
it.
of companies that have done it really well.
There are companies that have figured it out, but until they all en masse figure out this is interactive,
So yeah, good
it's not
point. Don't
just,
create a Twitter account if you're not going to have someone dedicated to actually monitoring it and using it.
it is not a broadcast tool. There are broadcast tools,
Right.
but this is not one of them. You can't just send things out one way. you're going to get a lot of stuff back and you have to go through it, or people are going to get tired of you very quickly.
Yeah, I think the problem too is, I mean, you know, a couple of years ago, you'd tweet any company, you'd probably get a response immediately. But now the community is so much bigger that, you know, there's a little more noise, there's a little more traffic. So
Virgin's still pretty good. I mean, if they provide some value, like, you know, if you're following them and you get, you know, some special you get, you know, for following them, like, you know, for the next 10 minutes, if you go and buy a plane ticket, you get X, Y, Z. Then that makes sense. It makes more sense to follow a company like that.
Yeah, but they still need to be interacting. They still
that's
need
true.
to just
Of
be.
course.
Well, Virgin's cool too. You know, whereas Ford's kind of dumb and clunky. You know,
Exactly.
So.
All right, so I guess we'll close out. I did have one thing before we close out. The very first This Week in Twitter challenge. We don't have a graphic. I didn't tell them I was going to do this. I have noticed every once in a while I get really weird organizations or groups following me that just seem like out of nowhere, and I can't figure out why they're following me. So I found one, and the challenge is you're going to tweet us at pound or hashtag TWI, tweet. That is our
the official hashtag.
That's the official hashtag of our show. At any point before next week's show, you want to send me who is the weirdest or creepiest or strangest account that's following you, and you can't figure out why they're following you. And mine is at VIP Cougar Club. Can we pull up my screen? Can we pull up my screen? I don't know if we have screen pulling up technology.
They might have seen that newspaper where it says you're the sexiest
Here we
man in
go.
the world.
So I'm loading it up right now. These guys are following me. I have never tweeted anything about my love of cougars. And
they saw your newspaper. That's what I'm telling you. The news.
They saw the newspaper.
Social network of cougars and cubs with a higher consciousness towards the older women, younger male relationship. Join us.
I think the cougars like you, Lon.
I mean, and who could blame them? At least it's
I
not
know.
VIP Bear Club. That would be more. That would be less appropriate. But why and how? So if you think you can beat that, if you have a weirder organization or group following you than VIP Cougar Club, send it to us via pound or hashtag tweet, and we will discuss it on next week's show. So, Scott, any crazy accounts following you that you can't? They're just totally inexplicable.
The whole stream goes by pretty quick. I'm following about 10,000 people right now, so I can't think of anything specifically that's really weird. Except there are a couple of monsters from my own novels that are following me. One is called Baby McButter, which is the killer star of Ancestor, which is out on June 22nd, scottsigler.com/pre-order.
Well done.
That one follows me all the time. And then another one called Meth Pigeon. I was tweeting one day, walking the dog, and this pigeon looked like it was pretty messed up on meth. And it was having a battle with the crazy sidewalk guy, which is the guy in my neighborhood who screams at the sidewalks all the time. So crazy sidewalk guy and meth pigeon, we're getting into it. I tweeted about that. The next thing you know, someone has created a meth pigeon account and is following me, making threats. Because Meth Pigeon carries a very tiny little switchblade under her tiny little wing, so it's kind of frightening.
That's the thing about meth. You're unpredictable. That's frightening. Okay, so anybody else from the audience? Pound TWI. Let us know. We will talk about the weirdest people who are following you on next week's show. I'd like to thank our guest, Scott Sigler. Thanks a ton, Scott, for being a great guest. And you can read his... tell us when Ancestor comes out again, because I have the wrong date.
We forgot.
Ancestor is out June 22nd. It's available for pre-order now at scottsigler.com/pre-order. You can pick from Amazon, Borders, Books A Million, Powell's, etc.
Great books. Right. I read them.
Awesome.
I read them. They're awesome.
Mark Jeffrey recommends them highly. I downloaded Earth Core to start out, but I have not listened to it yet.
Great
so
stuff.
I'm going to get on that. Thanks again for being here. Thank you to Amanda and Mike and Mark, and we'll see you next week on This Week in Twitter.